Hey, welcome to my channel again, or for the first time if you're here for the first time. Today I'm going to be doing a review of The Hollow Girl by Hilary Monahan. This is a library book, that's why it's so shiny. So I made a list, as always, and I'm going to be talking about things I loved and things I didn't like as much about this book. I probably want to give it 3.5, but that's not really an option usually when you rate a book, so I would give it, it's really hard. I probably would give it, wow, this is like a challenge right now. Anyways, forget about the rating for a moment. I'm just gonna talk about the book, and maybe when I have sort of made my final conclusion on how I feel about it, then I will be able to tell you if I gave it 3 or 4. I'm probably gonna give it 3 stars. Not because it's a bad book. It's not a bad book at all. It's actually very interesting. But it just disappointed me on some levels, although it was a good book. So I'm gonna talk about it, and I am just wanting to make something clear. This book is like a very touchy subject that it has covered. This is about a girl getting raped, and this is about a girl getting raped and then executing her revenge on the boys who harmed her. And it's really kind of hard to, rate a story like that. I mean, it just sounds way too real, and like, how many stars do you give something like that, I don't know. Well, anyhow, let's start talking, and I'm gonna talk about the book itself. And I mean, it's a good book, it's enjoyable. The reason why I picked it up was because the setting is very interesting. The setting is Wales, and the protagonist of the story is a Roma girl. Romas are oh my gosh, I can't speak. Romas are travelers, and their politically incorrect name is gypsies. But they go by Roma now, and this is kind of like the setting of the book. This is about a girl who's a traveler. She's an apprentice of a witch. Her name is Bethan, and she has an odd kind of like birthmark on her face, and it's like covering half her face or something and half her body. But she's still very beautiful regardless, which made me a little bit irritated because I'm like, are you saying that only beautiful girls get sexually assaulted? I mean, that was kind of like the part that I sort of disliked about the novel, because it was made, like, they repeated all the time that she's pretty. And I'm like, I mean, you don't have to be pretty to have something this awful happen to you. Like, can you stop saying that? It just kind of, I don't know, it just felt a little bit wrong to me. Although it didn't like hinder my reading experience, but I just didn't like the fact that they kept saying that she's pretty, And on the cover, interestingly, her face is perfectly fine. You don't see the birthmark on her face. Anything, not on her hands, although it's clearly covering half her face. And I don't understand why they didn't do it on the cover, because that would have been so awesome and so special. Because we're so used to having these perfect, beautiful heroines all the time. And I don't know why they didn't use it on the cover. Maybe because they thought that it's not going to be as attractive if they used it on the cover. I mean, okay. Anyhow, in case you ever watched the film I Spit on Your Grave, this is a lot like I Spit on Your Grave. So this is about a girl who is wronged, and then she kind of takes her revenge on the people who wronged her. The only difference is that Bethan doesn't really take her revenge on these people because she wants to take revenge. She only takes revenge on these people because she wants to help another person. So let's talk about the book. And kind of like, it's not going to be spoiler free. All I want to say is that I do recommend reading it. It is a good story. It is unconventional in terms of setting. I've never read anything that featured Roma protagonists. And it's a good revenge story because she does get her revenge eventually, and she does get her happy ending, which is very nice when it happens to people who have been, who went through so much abuse and so much hurt. So let's start. So the things that I didn't really like about this novel was it was kind of like weak world building. The reason for that is because Bethan belongs to a group of travelers, and the Roma way of life is different from, the Welsh way of life. They have their own unique set of rules, of propriety. They are Christian, but they kind of view the world slightly differently, and their kind of like values are kind of different, but you don't really feel it in the book. The only thing that you kind of like see it through is when Bethan says, like, people who are not Roma are filthy and they don't care about being filthy. Roma are very clean, we're very proper, the girls are very proper, the girls are very prudent, we basically don't lose our virginity until the day that we get married. Other than that, you don't really feel anything, unique or special about these people. Like, honestly, Bethan could have been a Welsh girl who got raped. And the story probably would have been just the same. She could have been a Welsh girl who got raped and sought the help of a witch. That's pretty much it. I mean, I wish, what's her name? I wish Hilary Monahan would have kind of like implemented Roma tradition more in the story instead of just using the witchcrafty element of it, because again, it kind of feels like she's falling to superstition and kind of like the what's expected that gypsies are, like what Roma people are, because there's this kind of like, especially in Europe, there is this stereotype of the Roma, especially of the Roma women, that they are witches, that they are fortune tellers, and that's basically all they do. And the men, I don't even know what the men do. But in the story, we're not really, we don't get too familiarized with the gypsy way of life, with the Roma way of life. We just know that there's a big bonfire in the middle of their camp, and that the locals who are not Roma really dislike them, and there's a huge antipathy, and basically they seek any reason to kind of like abuse the Roma or to kick them out and stuff like that. But again, this is not overly discussed, and this is not the main issue of the story. This is not the struggles of the Roma people in Wales. This is kind of like the struggle of an individual girl who goes through abuse that was induced by people from her own circle, which is quite awful because she always expected that the danger would be from the outside, from the outsiders, from the non-Roma people. But the danger comes from the very inside when a boy who is like, he's not really a boy, I guess he's in his late teens, he's like the son of the chieftain, and he's always kind of like harassing her and berating her and kind of like groping her and stuff like that. And Bethan is very prudent, she's very, she's a virgin, she's very proper, she doesn't seek men's attention. She knows that she will be the next kind of like witch, the next witch doctor of the clan, so she knows that there's no point in her hooking up with someone because she'll never marry, she'll never have kids. She'll dedicate herself to the craft. And this boy kind of like, I think his name is pronounced Silas, he keeps kind of like stalking her, him and his friends, and she does not want his attention, obviously. and she keeps telling it to the old witch that she's the apprentice of, and the old witch is like, I'm gonna talk to his dad. But no matter how many times they talk to the father, it doesn't seem to do any good, and this boy just keeps coming at her. So, and this is my issue with Bethan and the villain of the story. It seems as if Bethan is a very kind of like flat character. She's not as a person, she just seems a little bit uninteresting. There is no fire to her personality. I mean, Silas does say that she's fiery, but she's not really fiery. She just doesn't want his attention, and she constantly keeps telling him, like, fuck off, you know? And he just won't. So he assumes that, like, she's doing all that to sort of, like, turn him on or something. To make him chase her, like, harder. But that's not why she's doing that, and he's just either too dumb to be able to kind of realize that, or I don't think he's dumb, he just wants her, and the fact that she keeps saying no just turns him on even more. It's like, honestly, it's a very unpleasant situation, and it escalates to a point where eventually he rapes her, especially after he sort of gets especially mad and jealous when he realizes that there is a non-Roma boy who's really handsome, and he kind of like seeks Bethan's attention. And because he's a nice guy and he's attractive and he's not, you know, like gropey or anything, and he's not as persistent as Silas, although he is persistent as well, and his name is Martin, Bethan is kind of like more lenient towards him. She does allow him to bestow her with some attention, and she kind of like flirts with him a tiny little bit, because she does find him attractive and there is this attraction between them, but she still keeps her distance because she's still afraid and she still knows that she cannot really mix with the non-Roma people. So when Silas realizes that, he kind of like acts quickly and he attacks the boy Martin. Basically, they almost kill him, and he rapes Bethan, and he wants to think that he impregnated her so that they will get married eventually, because now she has his child. I mean, that's 50 shades of fucked up. I have no idea if he genuinely wanted that to happen, or he's just like, you know, fucking with her, because this guy is like weird. I did not really understand if Silas was legit crazy or if he was really like in lust with her. I honestly could not understand his character, because on one hand he kind of like seemed to want to marry her, at the same time I mean, I don't know, I didn't get a good read on his character, and again, I don't know if this was the intention of the author or it's just not clear writing, because I'm like, I just would like to know if he's really, I mean, obviously he has, you know, he's not okay mentally, but I would just like to know if he was delusional enough to really believe that his plot of impregnating this girl via rape is gonna make her marry him. I mean, that was very messed up when I read it. Other than that, what weirded me out quite a lot in this novel was the fact that the Roma people are supposedly, especially the ones in this circle of travelers, are a close-knit community, and everyone knows what happened to, like, the news travels like wildfire. Everyone knows Bethan was raped. Everyone knows who did it. It's not a secret. People are fully aware who's responsible. They're also fully aware that they murdered, like, they have no idea that Martin, like, survived, but they are fully aware that they murdered this boy for nothing. It was not as if it was self-defense. And they do fuck all. It's amazing. I mean, I'm sure that if they were assaulted by non-Roma people, they would have done something. They would have got mad, they would have got together, they would have got into like, they would have created a council to do something about it. In this case, a girl is raped, a boy is dead, murdered in cold blood, and no one does anything. I mean, it's amazing. I understand that the parents of these boys want to protect them and don't want to, you know, give them away or anything, and they, you know, try to protect them from the witch, they try to protect them from Bethan's rage. But all day, like, it's amazing. And when Bethan is executing her vengeance, because basically she has to collect items from all the boys. She has to collect like an ear, fingers, hair, their essence, in order to bring Martin back to the, you know, in order to bring him back. And they just kind of like judge her for her actions, and I'm like, she was raped. I mean, it's not as if they just lifted up her skirt and showed the world her underwear. She was sexually assaulted by this one asshole and his other friends who helped it happen, and they also murdered a guy in the process. How is that okay with you people? How are you finding that okay? Why are you judging her? Like, I did not understand that at all. It just escaped me. How is that even possible? Not one person among this entire group approached Bethan and said, hey, are you okay? Or we should do something about it. We should punish these people. We should hold a trial or something, you know, because they have their own rules. I'm sure they have the rules when it comes to crime and, you know, crime against, you know, Roma against other Roma. Nothing happens, and I was baffled. I was horrified. And I was like, I hope that this is not the way it is, like, in real life, because that's just atrocious, you know? And Bethan is just, she kind of realizes in this process of getting her revenge that she doesn't want to become a witch anymore because the price is too high. She's always afraid of kind of like losing her soul, losing her goodness to this, you know, to this cycle of vengeance. She's always afraid that she will turn into this person who doesn't feel and who doesn't care. And she always commits these tasks kind of like, you know, she doesn't have it in her. The only reason why she keeps doing it was not because she wanted to get her revenge, but because she wanted to save Martin. And the witch tells her that it's a good thing, because it means that she's a strong person, and she still is a good person, and it's very important. But Bethan doesn't really see it that way. She undergoes through a tremendous transformation as a result of the rape, and she just loses a lot of, you know, she loses interest in a lot of things, understandably. And she doesn't take joy in seeing these boys struggle, in seeing them die. At times, she even feels guilty about doing what she was doing. And this was kind of disappointing because I wanted her to sort of celebrate her success. I wanted her to be happy that she was kind of like hurting these people. But she wasn't. She was hesitant, she was reluctant, she was disgusted. I mean, I understand that everyone has their own kind of like thought process and everyone digests things differently. But I just wanted there to be more hate and more viciousness and more anger. But there wasn't. And maybe that's the way it is, you know, maybe when a person goes for something really traumatic, they don't really want to take revenge. Maybe they just want to hide. Maybe they just don't want to be seen by anyone. I mean, it's really hard to judge. You know, it's impossible to judge, quite honestly. This book is quite short. It's like 260 pages. Things turn out okay for her eventually. She does get her revenge. Martin does sort of come back from the dead. The boys are all dead, I think, with the acceptance of, with the exception, because obviously English is, you know, not my first language, I'm sorry. So with the exception of two boys the rest of them, no, 3 boys, 2 of them die. Silas dies, just as he's about to make his, he's about to basically run away, but Bethan kind of like catches him just in time. So 3 boys survive, 2 of them die, and Bethan and Martin, you feel as if eventually they'll end up being together because the witch kind of told Bethan that this is her fate, and eventually she will kind of like be with him. And she also adds that she might want to take on witchcraft eventually when she sort of heals and everything. So that was like, there was a promise for Bethan to kind of regain her inner strength once she's healed more or less. But quite honestly, I just wanted there to be more. I wanted it to be darker. I wanted it to be more emotional. I wanted it to be more mysterious. And I wanted it to be kind of like more, I don't know. I don't even know. I just wanted it to be definitely a book that combines witchcraft and anger and everything, I just wanted it to be explosive. But it wasn't explosive. And I mean, that's probably why I'm giving it 3 out of 5. I didn't feel the richness of the Roma culture. Even before what happened to Bethan, I found her kind of like not a very interesting character. The only 2 interesting people in this entire novel were the old witch and Silas, the bad guy. They were the only people who seemed to have a real personality and who seemed to have something to say. Everyone else just felt like a puppet on strings a little bit. That was kind of disappointing. But all in all, it was a really nice book. It was a good book. I felt that it could have been definitely better, but it's a very touchy subject, so trigger warning definitely. If you're uncomfortable with these themes, don't pick it up. Also, there's gore, there's violence. If you're uncomfortable, handling these subjects, then this book might make you feel really uncomfortable. But if it's something that you do want to explore, definitely pick it up and read it, because it is an interesting story. And you do get to see kind of into the mindset of, a sexual assault victim, and the idea that revenge is not always something that makes you feel better, because revenge will not fix anything. It won't turn back time. And, that's kind of what this book is trying to bring across. I mean, it's it's a good story. I don't want to roast it, because I don't feel like I have the right to roast it because of the subject. I don't want to praise it too much, because I didn't feel like I was reading anything amazing. What I did like about it quite a lot was the fact that Bethan got her revenge eventually, and Martin was okay. So these are my thoughts on the Hollow Girl. Pick it up at your library, buy it if you want to. Really, a really fast read. It takes a little bit of time before things start happening, but once they do, they just happen super, super fast, which I didn't really appreciate, because I knew that something bad was gonna happen. But I was just I hate it when they stretch it and you're oh, why? Every chapter, is it gonna happen now? Now? And there's this anticipation, and then you're so yeah. So like I said, a pretty short book, a pretty good read, very interesting. I definitely would recommend to read it, because it is an unusual setting. So these are my thoughts on the book. This is my list. 3 out of 5. Honestly, if I could give it a 3.5 out of 5, I definitely would have given it 3.5 out of 5. Really enjoyable, a really cool story, really interesting story. Like I said, if you feel that this is too much for you, you probably don't want to read it. But I definitely see this being turned into like a movie or, you know, like a TV show. It will be a really interesting thing to do. So thank you so much for sticking around and listening to me talk about this book. I know that it's not a very pleasant subject. I know that some of you might totally not agree with what I'm saying, which is fine. If you have something to say, feel free to comment below. And yeah, thanks.